Like my brother Elisha said, we are in our series, Walk with Jesus, and we're in the book of Joshua. So we went through the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. Now we're in Joshua. So the first 5 books of the Bible, right? We went through the first 5 books of the Bible. Joshua is the 6th book. We're going to be in the 6th chapter. 6 is the number for man. And so we're going to be in Joshua chapter 6. Starting Wednesday, we're going to get to Judges, and then Sunday we're going to stay in Judges, and then we're going to keep moving on. But I encourage you, keep reading through the scriptures. It's just so good. And then, of course, we're keeping up with the sermons, and we're just excited to just go from cover to cover and see what God did all throughout these centuries and all throughout the Bible. And so, okay, we're in Joshua chapter 6. We're going to read the first 11 verses. And I want you to listen for something interesting here. The first 5 verses, God is talking to Joshua, and he gives him some instructions. And then Joshua goes to give those same instructions to the people of Israel. They change a little bit. And I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know why the change. To me, it's a little unfair, but I'll walk you through that. So Joshua chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. Jericho's scared. They bar the gates. They lock the gates because of Israel. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse." Then the wall of the city will collapse. Somebody shout for that. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, everyone straight in, right? We just sang about that, right? And if he told the walls when to fall, and it did again. I can do it, right? No. Okay. Joshua chapter 6, verse 6 now. So now it's Joshua's turn. Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests, said to them, he's like, "Huddle up, guys. Take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it." And he ordered the army advance, march around the city with an armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord. When Joshua had spoken to the people, right, so he talks to the priests, now he's talking to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All good up in this point. Then he says, all this time the trumpets were sounding, but Joshua had commanded the army, "Do not give a war cry. Do not raise your voices. Do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." Now, I just find this weird. I was just reading this. I'm like, well, God told Joshua, hey, 6 days you're going to walk around once. On the 7th day, you're going to walk around 7 times, and then you're going to shout. But Joshua tells the people, we're going to walk around. Don't say a word. Stay quiet until the day I tell you to shout. Which kind of seems unfair to me because the guys are walking around in circles and it's kind of like not knowing which day is going to happen. Like if you know like, hey, day so-and-so is going to happen, you're ready for it. You're excited for it. So as the days are passing, you're like, okay, I can get there. But if you don't know, you're just walking by faith, which is awesome, but it's harder, obviously, right? So I don't know if this was intentional, but I don't know. Kind of not fair for the guys. Verse 11, so we had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once, so this is day 1. Then the army returned to camp and spent the night there. So Moses is dead. Joshua is our new leader. We learned this in Joshua chapter 1. Pastor Durso spoke 2 Wednesdays ago, and he spoke about be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. I was gonna say I was gonna just do a little. Friday, I got to spend some time at the hospital with Pastor Milton and Pastor Jocelyn, and Pastor Milton said that if he could say 2 words about his wife, Pastor Jocelyn, it was that she was strong and courageous. And she just knew where she was going, and it just broke me and blessed my heart so much that as we're in these scriptures, like, just to see the visibility of someone who's such a great disciple of the Lord, and now she's with the Lord, just blessed me so much. So we love her, obviously. Be strong and courageous. Joshua chapter 1. This is God's instruction to Joshua and the people. Be strong and courageous. He says, I will be with you. I will never, big verses. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I will be with you wherever you go. So we've miraculously crossed the Jordan River. We entered and are now in the promised land. We have stacked rocks as reminders on this side of the promise to remember the promise. We have now come to the very first city in the promised land. The first enemy, the first obstacle, it's the city of Jericho, not a very big city. It took about an hour to walk around the whole thing, but their defense was their really high walls. And as we learned Wednesday from an incredible message by our very own Bianca. Somebody give it up for Bianca. So proud. We have already sent some spies in and having we have inside information from an inside woman, a prostitute named Rahab, and she told us that everyone's scared and be sure we have the victory. More importantly, God's already told us that we have the victory. So we know what we know. We know the enemy shaking in their boots. We know the victory is ours. And man, I mean, Israel must have been like, God's already brought us through some wild ones. Like, we got out of Egypt. We crossed the Red Sea. We saw the plagues. We saw these miracles, 40 years in the deserts, fires and clouds and breads and birds falling from heaven and all these incredible miracles. And then, of course, Jordan River crossed through on dry ground. So they're like, okay, let's go. They're excited. We got this. Their chest puffed up. And they're like, all right, God, here we go. Let me at them. God says, take a walk. Walk around the city quietly. Not a word. Just have 7 priests play 7 trumpets and go home. Time out. The chapter right before this in Joshua chapter 5, right before God's about to tell them in chapter 6 to walk around the city and do all this walking. In chapter 5, he tells all the men that they had to get circumcised. Snip, snip. We just got snipped, and now you want us to walk. Yeah, walk. Okay, God. Time out two. We are the new kids on the block. This is the first enemy. They are right there. We need to do this. We're about to turn up. Their gates are locked. They know we're here. Rahab told us they're filled with fear. We got to strike first, especially because the rest of the promised land enemies are watching our very first fight. It's almost like when you were a kid and a bunch of kids like came up to you to like mess with you, right? What do you got to do? You got to punch the first bully in the face first so that everybody else knows you about that life. We got to get them. God says, hey, I said take a walk around the city. But God, we've been walking in circles for 40 years already. Enough with the cardio. God says, walk. Okay, God. Day 1, take a walk and go home. All right, God. You good? Day 2, take a walk and go home. All right, God. Not seeing any results here, but whatever you say. Day 3, take a walk and go home. Okay, God. Haven't seen a brick fall, haven't seen a crack in the wall. But okay. Day 4, take a walk and go home. God, I feel stupid. I feel like we're wasting a lot of time here. But okay, God. Day 5, take a walk and go home. God, at this point, I mean, the enemy is probably on top of the walls and looking out their windows and looking at us like we're a bunch of dummies and like we're this high school marching band walking around with trumpets, and this is kind of embarrassing, God. Day 6, take a walk and go home. Day 6, number of man, take a walk and go home. It's been a week, God. I feel like we could be doing so much more. Why am I still here walking in circles? And I believe that sometimes God has us walking in circles quietly, preparing us even when we don't understand it, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it seems like a waste of time, even when it seems like nothing is happening. The question is, if God tells you to walk, will you keep walking even when it doesn't seem like it's working? Can we focus on the obedience and not the outcome? Could we focus on the faith part and not what we see? It would almost be like you get inspired. I don't know if you get inspired, like you see a workout video and you're like, oof, right? And this is me, like I see a workout video and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get in shape, right? And so I lay down, I do one sit-up, I start feeling my abs. I'm like, anything? Guys, anything? Anybody, anything? I look in the mirror. If we saw immediate results, wouldn't we keep going? Obviously. If I did one sit-up and saw an ab pop out, I'm gonna keep doing sit-ups because I see the problem is when we don't see the immediate results, we usually stop. I wanna tell somebody not to stop. I wanna tell somebody to keep going. Imagine had the Israelites stopped at day 1. Imagine had they stopped at day 3. Imagine had they stopped at day 6. God's telling someone here to keep going. Listen, it's exciting to start something. It's better to finish it. It's way better to finish. I need you to keep going even when you don't see what you were expecting to see. Don't stop short of the promise. Somebody's close to losing their passion. Somebody here or online might have already lost their passion. Someone's tired of living like roommates and contemplating ending the marriage. Someone's contemplating ending the business. Someone's contemplating ending or giving up on staying substance free. Someone's contemplating giving up on staying pure. Someone's contemplating on giving up on that kid that's out of control. Somebody might even be contemplating of ending their own life. And I'm here to tell you, don't throw in the towel. Don't give up hope. Don't end the dream. I need you to keep going. Please keep going another day. One more lap. One more lap. God's about to do it. There's about to be a breakthrough. There's about to be a miracle. And so day 7, we're going to take a walk and go home? Nope, not today. That's why we read our Bibles every day. There's daily instructions, daily strategies. New every morning. Today's different. So today, day 7, walk 7 times around the city. 7, number of God, perfection, completion, it is finished. 6 days, they walk once, and on the 7th day, walk 7 times. So on 6 days, they walk 1 for each day, that's 6 times. And on the 7th day, they walk 7, that's a total of 13 times. Very good. 13 times. And then, on the 7th day where you walk 7 times, then you're going to blow the trumpets. And this time, you're going to shout. And when you shout, the walls will fall, the army will go in, the Lord has given you the city, past tense, you will win, it's already been promised. You got it because I already have it. You got it because I already have it. Oh, 2 more things before we go. 1, I need you to kill everything living, and then everything that's not living, all the valuables, all the gold and silver, that's all to be set apart. That's holy. That's my stuff. He says, don't touch any of it. Kill everything living. Don't touch anything. I believe that why this was Jericho was the first city in the promised land, the first enemy. This is a principle of the first. The first fruits belong to God. And so it was, don't touch anything. Obviously, it would have been nice, right? They've been walking in the desert for 40 years. You see some gold, you see some stuff. This could be useful to us, obviously. No. Don't touch anything. First fruits belong to God. I promise I'm going to bless you with some stuff. Don't touch this stuff. Okay. First fruits belong to God. Kill everything living. Don't touch anything else. So, one more time. Walk around 7 times. Trumpets. Shout. kill everything, don't touch anything. Okay, most of this makes sense, God, but the shouting part, you mean shout when the walls fall? That's easy. No. He says, no, shout, then the walls will fall. See, anyone can shout when the walls are already coming down, but God said, get in front of that wall that's been facing you for 6 days. He could have had them shout a week ago, but he wanted them to take a week for a walk. He knows what he's doing. You do what he tells you. There's a reason for the wait. He's preparing something. So you get in front of that bank account, that depression, that marriage, that addiction, that big bad wolf trying to blow your house down, that thing that's been staring you in the face, making you think that it's never going to happen, that prayer request that feels like it's never going to get answered. And I need you to shout before there's even a crack in the wall. And people may look at you like, what are you shouting for? Don't you see these walls? Don't you see how strong they are? Don't you know how tall they are? Don't you know how well they've been constructed? Don't you know that they've been there for such a long time? I don't know why you're shouting. You think they're going to come down? What are you shouting for? Oh, I'm shouting because he said so. And he said they will. And he said we will. And I believe what he says when he says he will. So excuse me while I shout at my wall, at the very thing that's in between me and my promise, at the very thing that's in between me and victory. See, the world says see and believe, but God says believe and you'll see. Oh, he makes me want to shout. Makes me want to shout. So they walk around 7 times. Then they blew the trumpets. And then they shout. City walls come falling down. All of it, besides one little sliver where Rahab lived. Amazing. But imagine as they're shouting, they start to hear cracks in the wall and rumble in the floor, and bricks start to fall, and walls starts to crumble apart, and this crashing down starts to happen. And as the bricks hit the floor and the dust swirls up in the air, creating this cloud, and people inside are screaming, and the Israelites outside are shouting, and all this commotion and all this craziness is happening. And now as the army is still shouting, they go rushing in, and they're screaming, victory, we got this. What a great day. Victory. We got it. First enemy in the bag. Done. But there was a guy named Achan. He was a soldier. One of these guys that walked around 13 times. One of these guys that went rushing in. One of the guys that was obedient, in formation, in uniform, part of the Israeli army, military man. He was trained, he was dedicated, he was sacrificial, he was willing to give his life for his country. He knew who he represented, he knew what he was supposed to do. He was one of the guys that crossed the Jordan River at flood stage. He was born somewhere in the wilderness. He's seen so many miracles that God did. He's one of the guys that shouted at the wall. He's part of the miracle, the first victory in the promised land. He went in with a purpose. He charged into those fallen walls screaming, shouting victory, excited to have won, excited to have seen God do the impossible. He knew the game plan. He knew the vision. He knew his training. He knew the rules. Don't touch anything. Destroy everything. He knew. But maybe as he's running and he's doing what he was supposed to do, following the rules, following what he was called to do, being part of the military, and he's inside the walls and he's killing everything that's living, and he's going all over looking for survivors, and he's flipping over tables, and he's looking in closets and looking in cupboards and flipping over beds and making sure there's not anybody left alive. And as he's doing what he was supposed to do, something shiny catches his eye. And he gets distracted. He later admits in chapter 7, verse 21, that he sinned against the Lord. And here's how he actually describes what happened. He says he saw something, he coveted it, he took it, and he hid it. He saw something, he coveted it, he took it, and he hid it. He saw, he coveted, he took, he hid. And no one's around. No one's going to know. Maybe his anniversary was coming up. Maybe he needed some stuff. It looked nice. No one's going to know. It's a robe. It's a couple shekels. Swipe. Puts it in his pocket. Goes back to doing what he was supposed to be doing in the first place. Goes back to killing. Goes back to winning the war. Nobody's ever going to know. Well, this one distraction, which leads to this one sin, cost him everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Satan always hides the price tag. And it's never worth it. It started with his eyes. He started because he saw something. Today we live in such a distracted world. We live in an attention economy. It used to be where families would gather around the dinner table and they'd eat and they'd focus and they'd talk, right? Then TV came in, but it was one TV in the living room. And so you'd have dinner, then you'd come and you'd watch your show, and you didn't have remote control, so whatever was on, and right, you had the 13, right? So you focused on one program and you'd watch it together as a family. Nowadays, either everyone has a TV in their own bedroom, and so everyone's all over the house and watching what they want, watching their own content. Or if it's like my house, we all come to the living room to watch a movie. We pick a movie, we turn it on, and then everybody is on their phones watching TikTok and social media and all distracted and divided, and it's insane. It's content overload. If you go to Times Square, right, there's about 100 screens, and they're all flashing something super colorful, and they spend millions and millions of dollars on these advertisements, and they're all fighting for our attention, and you're like looking all over the place. You don't know what to look at, so you really look at nothing. You just remember a lot of things flashing around you. We have an attention management problem. We all have some sort of attention deficit disorder, and we get distracted and we get off course. We're looking at what everyone has around us, we get distracted. We're going to walk with Jesus and we go to read our Bibles and our phone goes off and we get distracted. We said, here's our New Year's resolution, and January 3rd, we get distracted. We said, here's where I want to be in 5 years, distracted. I was committed to this, but distracted. We have a finish line, we have a goal, we have dreams, but we get distracted. And distraction is the destruction of your calling in slow motion. Distraction is anything that pulls our attention away from God. And God is really all that matters in this world. And the Bible warns us over and over and over about this. The parable of the sower with seed falling on good soil, it says, but Mark 4, the worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. Matthew 6, don't worry about what you're going to eat, drink, or wear, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Philippians 4 urges us to focus on what is true and noble and right, implying the importance of avoiding distractions from these virtues and telling us what's actually worth our attention. Proverbs 4 says, let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. Hebrews 12 says, let us throw off everything that hinders you and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. We need focus now more than ever. We need fixed eyes now more than ever. See, the enemy doesn't just win by getting us to do bad things. He can win by distracting us from doing the good things. If you never do a bad thing, but you never do a good thing, Jesus said, I only do what I see my Father doing. He was focused. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength. Focused. We need sobriety. We need a clear mind. We need focus. Like you ever see a horse? They have those things on their heads, right? They're called blinders. It's so that they don't look backwards. They don't look to the right or the left. They look forward. They have a path that they're supposed to be on. If they're running a race, they're supposed to be running this way. Nothing. If anything spooks a horse and it's on the right or the left, they'll spook and they'll get off course. They'll get off track. So they put these blinders on so that they could look straight. We need eyes like that. We need blinders on so that we're focused. Our eyes are fixed on Jesus, running the race that he called us to run. And listen, we all get distracted, which almost always leads to sin. And almost always starts with the weakest part of our body, the eyes. All throughout the Bible, Adam and Eve distracted by the fruit. Lot distracted by the good land, Samson distracted by Delilah, David distracted by Bathsheba, Solomon distracted by luxury, Martha distracted by house chores, Peter distracted by the waves. We've all been here. We got saved, baptized. If you've been here as saints for any length of time, you know that our vision, our calling is that we reach people, we grow believers. We know the game plan. We know the vision. We're on course, pumped about what God's calling us to do. We know whose team we're on. We know what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. But easily we get comfortable, even in the biggest victories, especially in the victories, because we think everything is good and we get comfortable. We have like this moment where we let our guards down and all of a sudden something shiny catches our eye and we get distracted. And before you know it, we've fallen. It starts with our eyes. Then we covet, which means to set your heart on something. And we sin, and it can cost us everything, and it's never worth it. Stupid Satan always hides the price tag. He never shows you the hidden cost, but I promise you it's never worth it. Back to our story. Achan took some of God's things and hid them in his tent, but no one knows. No one knows at this point. And Jericho, the battle of Jericho went so great, the guys are like, all right, let's move on to the next city. The next city is called Ai. And so they say, man, Ai is even smaller than Jericho. We don't even need to send all our men. As if they had anything to do with the walls falling down in Jericho, right? They're like, we can send the B team. We can send junior varsity in. Just send the guys in. It's an easy win. Overconfident. They don't consult with the Lord. They don't pray. And they get whooped. And 36 of their men get killed in battle. FYI, this is the only time they lost a battle conquering the promised land. But at this point, it's only battle number 2. They're 50-50 now. The other enemies in the land are watching this. And so Israel's confidence is down. The enemy's confidence is up. And now Joshua runs to God like, what in the world just happened? This like he just about loses his mind. He tears his clothes. He falls face down on the ground before the Lord. And he's like, God, what happened? We weren't supposed to lose. We weren't supposed to lose. They weren't supposed to lose. They weren't supposed to lose. We aren't supposed to lose. But there's always a reason for the loss. And so God explains to Joshua, and he reveals to him about Achan and the sin, and he tells him everything. And listen how horrible this is. Joshua chapter 8, verse 12, he says, this is God talking to Joshua. He says, hey, I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. Wait, what happened to I'll never leave you? What happened to I'll never forsake you? What happened to I'll be with you wherever you go? What happened to that? Sin separates us from God, so you got to deal with it. You cannot move forward until you deal with it. Deal with it, and I'll be with you. But you got to deal with it. Now, Joshua didn't sin, but he was connected to someone who did, and it affected everyone. One person disobeyed, one person sinned, and now there are 36 funerals. Mothers lost their sons, wives lost their husbands, kids lost their dad, people lost their uncles. 36 families mourning because one guy sinned. One guy sinned, they lost the war. One guy sinned, and it jeopardized God's continued presence. Be careful who you're connected with. Be careful who's in your camp. So all of Israel, they go get Achan, but not just Achan. They go get Achan and his wife and his sons and his daughters and his cattle and his donkeys and his sheep and everything they owned and their tents and all the stolen things, and they bring them out. They bring everything together, and they bring it to this valley called the Valley of Achor. His name is Achan, very close but different. His name is Achan. They bring them to the Valley of Achor. And what do? It says that all of Israel, not just Joshua, not just the leaders of the tribes, all of Israel stoned them. Then they burn their bodies. Then they bury them. Then they put a heap of rocks on top of them. Talk about a bad day for Achan and his family. But it shows us the heaviness of sin. It shows us that God wants us to live in godliness and holiness. I always told my kids growing up, and I still tell them today, bad decisions equal bad consequences. Good decisions equal good consequences. Great decisions equal great consequences. Jesus' decision equal Jesus' consequences. Achan walked around the city 13 times. The number 13 actually means blessing. He turned his blessing into a curse. His sin caused his own death and his family's death and the loss of everything that they had. But thank God for the cross. Thank God for on this side of the cross, we don't serve under the same consequences. On this side of the cross, we're not treated as our sins deserve. On this side of the cross, there's grace and there's mercy. See, they no longer have to stone us or lay a big rock on top of us because Jesus, the rock, took on the curse and laid it all out for us, so that we could live a blessed life and a life more abundantly. It doesn't have to cost me everything because it already cost him everything when he went to the cross and he died for my sins. So I repent, I deal with it. I messed up. It's not just that he died for it and it's over and I don't have to deal with it. No. I messed up, I sinned, I repent, I deal with it, and he forgives me. And we move forward. Hosea chapter 2, verse 15 says, I will make the valley of Achor, something that was the scene of such a horrific moment. He says, I will make the valley of Achor a door of hope, even when you mess up, even when you sin, even when you get distracted and get off course. There is a door of hope that you can walk through, but you have to walk through it. And listen, maybe you're currently in a valley where you're dealing with some consequences of sin and bad decisions. You were on course. Remember, this guy was part of the army. This guy was in the army for years. So this is not talking to somebody who doesn't know the Lord. We're talking to believers. You were on course, doing what you were supposed to be doing. You got distracted along the way. Things happened. Consequences followed. And you feel like you lost everything. Maybe you're sitting here, you're online, and you feel like you're losing everything right now at this moment, today. Today. Let's go from distracted to decided. Yeah, I was distracted, but I'm making a decision to get back on course. See, I refuse to let what's distracted me and got me off course to keep me off course. I refuse to let this sin stone me and burn me and kill me and keep me from moving forward and obtaining what God has for me. I refuse to let this keep affecting my family. I've decided to follow Jesus, no turning back. I got no room for distractions. I declare I am no longer distracted. I am attracted to Jesus. Eyes locked, focused, fixed on him, focused on the one who chose me, focused on the one who cancels my debt, that gave me spiritual sight and spiritual vision. I don't walk by physical sight, I walk by faith. If my eye causes me to sin, I'm willing to pluck it out. Lord, I give you my undivided attention. Both my eyes are looking forward. Both my feet are moving forward. It's cost me so much already, but I've decided today it won't cost me anymore. And what it already cost me, my God made a promise that he will restore the years the locusts have eaten. Philippians chapter 3, Paul says, there's this one thing I do. I've spoken about a lot of things to do, but Paul says, man, there's this one thing I do, forgetting what's behind me, forgetting what knocked me off, forgetting what sidetracked me, forgetting what I did yesterday or this morning. I press on toward the goal. I'm moving forward. I'm looking forward to what lies ahead. I'm getting up and walking through this valley, through the pain, through the hurt, through the door of hope, through these walls. I'm going to shout as if these walls were already down. Man, you can say, man, you don't even know, Pastor. I've been through so much already. I ain't got no voice left. Wait, you think that the walls came down because of the loudness of their voice? It had nothing to do with the loudness of their shout. It had everything to do with the loudness of their obedience, the loudness of their faith. And faith looks forward. I got faith for the future. Faith for the past don't even make sense. My faith is what's ahead of me, not behind me. I will not let what's behind me make me miss what lies ahead of me. What's behind me isn't going with me, so I'm trusting the author of the next chapter, and I'm shouting as the pages turn. Come on, shout before you even see a crack in the wall.